Hey guys, Jonathan here from the i5 podcast team that I host alongside my friend Jim. If you like what you hear, please don't hesitate to hit the trinity of the like, share and subscribe. And with that out of the way, on to the topic at hand. The Spectator is known for being compromised in relation to its association with the government, which is a conflict of interest. Its summer parties sees journalists and politicians cement themselves as the establishment while drinking a toast and taking pictures with each other. To put it bluntly, if you placed a virus at that party, you would infect most of, if not all of the Westminster bubble within 48 hours, if not sooner. The Spectator economics editor, Kate Andrews, who is formerly an assistant director from the IEA think tank that has incubated many economic policies, such as Liz Truss's recent set that tanked the economy. The Institute of Economic Affairs focuses on, amongst other things, the priority of business and their profits at the expense of the economic well-being of ordinary people. It's pretty much infected the Tory party, as seen with Liz Truss, and it's also infected the press, as seen with Andrews. One of the big mysteries about this group, however, is who actually funds it. It's a lockdown secret and leaves them wide open to criticism. Its members are more than happy to criticise the funding of organisations like Byline TV and Novara Media, who are paid for by their subscribers and watchers, by the way, but they seem to get very sensitive when you turn the argument back on them. They shamelessly act in this interest with very, very thinly veiled attempts to disguise it. They just don't like it when you accuse them of it or point any of this out. Kate Andrews recently did a question time where she seems to be spinning a new IEA narrative. There have been narratives before that have caught on. David Cameron, for example, built his premiership on the taxpayers' money narrative, basically blaming university students, people on the dole, single mums, etc. for the state of the economy. He used that term taxpayers' money to specifically give people a little bit of power to look down on those who they believe they paid for, rather than have them realise they paid for a university system, a welfare system and an NHS that they themselves could take advantage of, should they need to. It played on people wanting to feel superior to other people and was used to justify George Osborne's austerity budgets, which did long-term damage to the economy, pulling funding from vital services like the NHS, education, welfare, social services and other vital government services. I go off on that quick tangent because Andrews basically tried to admit the Cameronite era of austerity and somewhat redefine it. She basically said to an audience member that we hadn't really seen any austerity. In fact, we had seen lots of spending, the furlough, etc. This is dishonest. Even for the last few years, spending lots of money in one policy doesn't mean there has been no austerity. You can spend lots of money on a few policies and simultaneously cut funding to vital areas. The austerity policies stay in effect until the money that was originally cut from sectors like the NHS or education, for example, gets that money put back into it. It is wrong to simply say we've not had any austerity for years when the effects of those cuts are still being felt and the original money hasn't been put back in from the Cameron-Osborne era. Jobs were lost, departments shut down within the relevant sectors, and overall funding was cut. Random spending here and there, like say in universal credit uplift schemes, doesn't take away from the effects of the original austerity policies. Theresa May never restored any of the cuts, nor did Johnson, and this budget from Hunt certainly doesn't either. It's reached a stage where the Tories are running out of things to cut, and rather than tax non-doms, they would rather increase tax for ordinary people. How Andrews can say what she said with a straight face says a lot about the media. It also ignores the principle of delayed cuts that we've seen in the last few years, if that's the right wording for what I'm about to describe. The idea that you raise something by a little bit, claim it as a gift, only for that small rise to be dramatically too low for the next financial year and the inflation that comes with it. The Tories do this with benefits all the time, which is why benefits are always behind inflation. It's getting to the point where it's the same with minimum wage, hence why we have the living wage argument. Going back to benefits, the uplift took benefits to an amount that they should actually be at, if not more. This is a principle the Tories really stick to, taking large amounts out of a sector like education, then paying in a fraction of what was originally cut back in, like in Jeremy Hunt's recent budget. It's extremely disingenuous for Andrews to ignore both these methods of implementing austerity. However, she revealed something in the next part of her comment. If you want an NHS and care system, you need to have high taxes. My response to that is the economic climate is not set up for a high tax economy right now. People are losing too much of their income due to increase in food prices, and rent prices, which continue to go up, and in relation to rent specifically, no one will talk about that except for people like Navarra or a handful of YouTubers like A Different Bias. My point is, the increase in council tax is going to hit people hard. But what I also want to say is, I believe what the new spin, the new narrative will be, and we saw Kate Andrews field test it to a question time audience. I think the new spin's going to be, if you don't want high taxes, privatise the NHS and other services. Now, while she didn't specifically say that, it was just the way she said, if you want the NHS, you need to have high taxation, and then ending the comment with, if you don't want that, then we need to talk about reform. I just find that highly suspicious. However, I want to emphasise this is just my opinion. The IEA has basically wanted to privatise a lot of Britain's assets, including the NHS. It's just my opinion that this is the new narrative they're going to use. I don't know this is fact. Even to take the argument at face value, I'm not sure I agree you need high taxation. Rather, you need moderate taxation, which is still quite high in this country, to be honest, and you also need for politicians to not continually give money away in lobbying groups or fucking misinvest it. In the past, like, say, George Osborne selling off state-owned Northern Rock for a fraction of its worth at a loss of 400 million. Rishi Sunak, not chasing up debt from the furlough scheme fraud. It's happened in the past, just lost money that no one's really tried to do anything about. Maybe that needs to stop. One last thing that I thought was quite odd, it's probably nothing. Kate Andrews didn't say your government spent 70 billion or the government spent 70 billion. She said we. We spent 70 billion. It's curious wording, maybe innocent or maybe an insight into how she sees herself. She's supposed to be a journalist. If she has got any involvement in government or any involvement in this policy process, then that is a conflict of interest for a journalist. Anyway, this is a short one, but I think this is the new IEA strategy to win over the public to the idea of privatising the NHS, using the current standards of the living crisis to do so. I'm Jonathan, one half of the i5 podcast team that I host alongside my friend Jim. If you like what you hear, please hit the like, share and subscribe buttons. Bye guys.